it's going to be intriguing to see if Lincoln Riley is one of these offensive-minded head coaches that continues to have the defense be an obstacle, a hurdle, and never solves it, and continues to draw heavy recruiting on the offensive side, never quite makes the right hire on the defensive side to counter or balance his offensive genius, and it just never gets done on the defensive side to the level that it needs to complement the offense and get them to where they need to go in the playoff. Much like Oklahoma, which the window and the sample size is small, so I don't want to draw a conclusion on where he would have taken Oklahoma. We don't know. It was a 5-season, sample size. Or if he's one of these head coaches, a la Pete Carroll, who is able to match the defense and the offense and it to be one team where there is no distinction or perception that this is an offensive-driven team or a defensive-driven team.
Fascinating point you make about Pete Carroll right there at the end, because, I did a podcast a year ago with an LSU expert on the 2003 season and, what if USC and LSU had met for the national championship that year. And one of the lessons I learned from that podcast was just how more limited college football was schematically in 2003. The sport has made, we think about like the 1970s or the 1980s, like we're college football has gone a long way since then. College football has gone a long way in just the past 20 years. Forget about the 80s and 70s, just the last 20 years, that things were so much more simplified. And I mean, at the time, relative to everything that was going on in college football in 2003, 2004, Norm Chow, Pete Carroll's offensive coordinator with those first great USC teams in the 21st century, Norm Chow was a step ahead of most other people. But relative to today, that's a much more simplified approach. Rich Rodriguez, especially when he beat Georgia with Pat White and Steve Slayton in that 2006 Sugar Bowl in Atlanta, that really seemed to get the gears rolling in terms of ushering college football schematically into a more modern age with more aggressive concepts. And when Pete Carroll first established his USC dynasty, the sport really hadn't turned the corner schematically. So Lincoln Riley, unlike Pete Carroll, he truly is like a modernized offensive coach, leading the sport into the space age, cutting edge innovation on offense. So, with that in mind, I think that Lincoln Riley, is of a mindset of, let's maximize what we do on offense. And that's kind of where the sport is right now. Like Nick Saban, defense first head coach. Is this what we want football to be? He grumbled, he complained, but he didn't resist. Like he went along with that flow, and he's won national titles with it. He continues to make national title games on a regular basis. And so it's a fascinating tension point that you raise, Mark, just because offense-centric teams are where the sport is. It's where the sport has been going the past several years since you saw the run-pass option and a lot of spread concepts becoming more regular in the sport. So the idea that, you should lean more on your defense, I mean, obviously that's where USC happens to be weakest, but if USC is going to make the playoff this year, it's not going to be because of the defense. It's going to be because the offense puts up 40, 45, 48 points. And with Jordan Addison, that's a game changer, because as good as Mario Williams is, and people expect him to be a very good, solid contributor, he wasn't that automatic lock, dominant number one receiver that Drake London was, for instance, last year. But Jordan Addison, definite number one. He's going to be a first-round draft pick. He is a game changer in terms of how he shapes the field and how the defense covers it. So long-term, Lincoln Riley does need to make sure he doesn't get pigeonholed and develop a negative reputation as the guy who neglects defense. But in 2022, it's going to be maximizing his offense as the gateway, as the path to USC realizing its potential. This is a team that's going to have to win a lot of video game style shootouts.